Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi, Bava Metzia Tzadi Vav. We are holding partway down the Amid, so it's the 20th line from the top of the Amid. Boi Rami Bar Chama. We know that a fellow who is a shayed, he borrows an item for personal use. He is now fully responsible. He carries the highest level of liability. Even if an oines, total accident takes place and damages or destroys the item, he is still chayev. As opposed to, let's say, a shemer sachar, a fellow who's just watching an item. So although he's getting paid for it, his level of responsibility is less than a shayel. So the question is, what constitutes a shayel? Boi Rami Bar Chama, he had a question. Shala l'rava ma'u. Let's say a fellow borrowed the animal, l'rava, to do an aver with the animal, to be physically involved as married. Ma'u, what is the halacha in this case? Is he chayev? Even if an oines occurs, even if an accident occurs, like any other borrower of an item, or shall we say, he doesn't have a status of a shayel, rather, he's only considered a shemer sachar, as the Ritva explains. So, what are the two ways to look at this? Says the Gemara, Kedeshayli inshi ba'inan. Does it have to be, for typical standard use? And this is not this type of use is not what typically people borrow an animal for, and therefore he's not considered a shayel. Or we can say tama mai. Let's go down to the root. Why? In fact, do we say a shayel, carries the highest level of responsibility? Mishum hano, because he gets benefit. V'hainami ha'isli hano, and this fellow as well. Next question. Shala le'ra'oispa. Suppose he's not actually intending on using, the animal or the item for actual use. He's just using it to make a statement, to impress people, as though he's a rich man, which will, gain him favor in other people's eyes, who might extend him some credit. So he's getting some, residual benefit, not direct benefit, but sha'ala le'ra'is b'mau. Is he considered a shayel? Shall we say that as long as the fellow gets some monetary benefit, he's considered a shayel, and we have that factor here as well. He's getting some benefit from this animal. Or no, we require that you have benefit directly from the item, but likely you don't have it in this case. Next question. Let's say he borrowed the animal or the tool to use it for some sort of work, some sort of malacha, which is very little. He's only going to get, very little benefit, less than a pruta of value from this animal. Mahu, what is the halacha here? Shall we say, as long as he gets some, that's okay. Or you can say, no, less than a pruta of value has no chashiv, has no significance. It's not called malacha that he has enough from it, and therefore he's not a shayel. Next question, which is sort of, an add-on to the previous question. Shal shtei parois lances behen pruta. Let's say he borrowed two animals to use them jointly for some sort of task, which provides a pruta of value. Mahu, what is the halacha here? So if we look at the personal aspect, the lender of the two animals and the borrower, there is a pruta exchanging hand. He's getting a pruta of benefit from this transaction, so therefore it qualifies. Look at the actual items involved, the animals. And look at each one is not really producing a pruta. There's no value there. Okay, so this sort of concludes a string of shilas regarding the parameters of a shayel. Now we move on to the concept of, we go back to the concept of ba'al of imoy. So we learned that when a fellow borrows an item and the owner of that item comes along to serve the borrower, right, in some capacity, ba'al of imoy lo yishalem, the fellow now is not responsible for things which he typically would be responsible for. So the question is, to what extent? What constitutes ba'al of imoy? And again, we're going to have all kinds of different colorful situations we'd like to know whether they qualify for Ba'al of Imay. Sha'al Mishutfin. A fellow borrowed an animal from Reuven and Shimon who were partners on his animal. Vinish Shaloi Echad Mehen. Now only Reuven came to serve the borrower, to help the borrower. So it's only one of the two owners that are coming as Ba'al of Imay. What is the halacha? Kulai ba'inan, Ba'al of ba'inan v'haleka. Do we require the entire ownership? The whole Ba'alim has to come along with the animal. You don't have it in this case. It's only one of the two owners. Or you can say no. The fact is, I'll be potter from at least that half of liability, which corresponds to Reuven's ownership. So is it all or nothing? Or do we say, we can sort of split it up piecemeal? Next question. Flip around the case. Shutfin Sheshalu. Reuven and Shimon are both, partners in a property, and they borrowed an animal from Levi. Okay? V'nishal le'echad mehen. Levi is now serving only Reuven. Right? In a different capacity, unrelated to this joint property. What is the halacha here? Ma'u. Kulo yishayel be'inan v'leka. Do we need that the owner should be serving the entire borrowing entity? In this case, it entails two people, Reuven and Shimon, are both borrowing. He's not serving both. V'leka, you don't have that. On the other hand, we can say that that half is enough. Right? So the half that he was helping him on, right? So let's say he was helping Shimon, or only Reuven, so at least Reuven, or at least only Shimon will be potter from that half that he himself is responsible for. Right? So we have Reuven and Shimon are partners, borrowing an item from Levi, and Levi is helping out Reuven in a different job. Do we say, it doesn't work because he's not helping out the entire borrowing entity, which involves two people, right? He's not Ba'al of Imay with Reuven and with Shimon. On the other hand, you can say that at least let him be exempt from half, meaning, let's say he's helping Reuven, so Reuven should be exempt from his liability on that half that he would typically be responsible for. Next question. Shalma Isha, a fellow borrowed from a married woman. He borrowed nichse melog, right, which is basically possessions or properties which she had taken in with her into the marriage, and technically it belongs to her, but the husband has access rights, usage rights, right? So now, let's say a person borrowed a behema from nichse melog, from a married woman. V'nishal ba'al. Now, instead of the actual owner, which is technically the woman, the husband was the one actually lent himself out and is serving the borrower. Right? So the question, should we consider him act like a ba'alim, because the fact is he has usage rights to this item, or do we say, no, technically she's the real owner? Ba'al of Imay would require the Isha's presence, not the husband. Or you can do it the other way. Isha sheshala, let's say we flip the case around. Isha sheshala, a married woman, borrowed an animal, okay? Vinishal, and the owner of that animal, right, so she took the animal to plow, her nichse melug. Vinishal lebal, and the owner, the one who lent the animal, instead of making himself available to the Isha, serving her, he is helping the husband do whatever he needs to do. Maho, what's the halach in this case? Shall we say, kinyan peres, the fact that the husband here has a kinyan peres, he gets the produce of the nichse melog, he has usage rights. Kinyan haguftami, that's an aspect of actual, ownership. In which case, if he's the owner to a certain extent, so when the fellow borrowed the nichse melug from the Isha and the husband came along for the ride, so to speak, you have Ba'al of Imay. Likewise, in the reverse case, where the Isha borrowed to plow through the Nichsei Melug, and the owner is serving the husband. Right? So since he's also a very important player, he's like an owner on this field, so it's like he borrowed the item, in which case, when the owner of that item is serving the husband, you have Bala V'imay. Which way? I have another question regarding She'ela B'Bailim, regarding Bala V'imay. He'd say, V'yisha'il li. In Parasi. Reuben instructs his Shliach Shimon, please, do me a favor. I'm lending out, my para to Levi. Please go help Levi. So I'm basically loaning Shimon together with my cow to Levi. What is the halach? Is it considered like Ba'ala V'imay because Shimon is sort of representing Reuben, the owner, going on his behalf to help Levi? Or do we say, no, the fact is you're not the actual owner? And the one explains, Ba'ala of Mamash B'ina, do we need the actual owner? But you don't have it in this case. Or you can say, no, right? A person's agent is treated like the person himself. So you have the owner, along with the animal. So basically we had two questions regarding Ba'ala V'imay now. One is regarding a husband and wife. What is the status of the husband? Is he considered like a true owner? Or just like a partial owner with access and is not considered Ba'ala V'imay? We had a question regarding a shliach. He's representing the owner, but he's not the actual owner. I'm going to clarify both questions. Pertaining to the question on the Baal, the husband, well, that's an old machlekas. Plukta de Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. I'm going to see in a minute. Regarding the next question of a shliach, well, plukta de Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yeshe. That's a machlekas tanoi. So basically, these two questions are connected to a machlekas tanoi. Sorry, the first one to a machlekas amaroim, the second one to a machlekas tanoi. Regarding the status of a husband vis-a-vis the wife's assets, Baal plukta de Rabbi Yehuda. Because remember, the husband's access is called kinyan peres. He gets income, he gets produce. He doesn't actually own the item. So that's an old question. When you have kinyan peres, is it considered like ownership or not? Plukta de Rabbi Yehuda Rish Lakish. Od machlokes did as we learned. Hamaycher sadeu lechaveru leperes. Reuven sells a field to Shimon, but not the actual field. You can have 10 years of produce off the field. That's kinyan peres. Rabbi Yehuda maybe when it comes time to bring the first growth to Yerushalayim, the Bikurim, you can bring it and recite the Parsha as though you're an owner, even though you're not really on the deed. You just purchased the produce. Kinyan peres is considered an aspect of actual ownership in the actual property. So you can go to Yerushalayim and you can tell Hashem, look, thank you for the property, etc. Rish Lakish Aimer maybe even a although he'll bring the peres, but he can't read out the Parsha there, which indicates that he's really the owner. I think more elaborates further. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer maybe v'koirei, he's a true owner because kinyan peres ki kinyan guf damis, as though he's owning the actual item. Rish Lakish Aimer maybe v'enei he'll bring, but he doesn't have to. He can't say the Parsha because kinyan peres, that limited access, is lavka kinyan guf dami. It's not considered. It's not tantamount to actual ownership. Likewise, now a case with the husband. It's kinyan peres. Is he an owner? Is he not? Well, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he is. According to Rish Lakish, he's not. Regarding the second question of a shliach, well, that's a plukta de Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yashe. That's a machlokes regarding nidarim, the sanya. Ha'imar lapatropos. So we know that a husband can nullify his wife's vows by making hafara, right? Null and void, right? So he can tell an agent, he tells his shliach, a fellow who administers his property, he says, look, do me a favor, all these nedarim that my isha might make from now till then, mikan acha'avay ma complaining, look, I'm going out of town for 2 weeks, from now till 2 weeks time, whatever you hear my wife doing, any nedarim, go cancel it for me. Hafirla, and that Patropos did that. Shall we say that it really works? That the hafara cancels the neder tamalayvar? No. You need the actual husband, no agents, no emissaries, no representatives, right? The husband, only the husband has the ability to certify or to nullify the Nedarim di Rabbi Yeshua. That's Rabbi Yeshua's Shita. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, no, Matzina b'chal makayim sheshluch shalad b'kamoisai. Just like anywhere else in the Torah, a shliach of a person, is treated like the original person, right? Shluch shalad b'kamoisai. Same thing with Hafaras Nedarim. You don't need the actual husband, if he has a shliach, to do it for him. Then it works. So, bottom line, the Gemara is comparing the two concepts, Ba'alav Imai to Hafaras Nedarim. Right? How personal does it have to be? Do you need the actual person here? Ba'alav Imai, you're not a shliach, just like by Hafaras Nedarim, the husband and nobody else. Or shall we say, no? A shliach works under all circumstances, and you can have Ba'alav Imai performed by a shliach. Interesting. Taisus asks, what's the connection between Hafaras Nedarim to Ba'alav Imai? He says that Rabbi Yashi's Shita is based on the fact that the Torah repeats the word Isha. Isha Yikimenu, Isha. Only the husband can do that, as opposed to a Shliach. Likewise, by Ba'alav Imai, the word Ba'alav is said twice in the Torah. Right? Ba'alav Imai, Lo Yishalem, Ein Ba'alav Imai, right? So, perhaps the Torah is stressing, right? According to Rabbi Yashia, the Torah is stressing that it has to be personal, not by way of a representative. Another Torah says Taisus, because the Lashon, Ba'alav Imai, sounds like the owner, Isha, the husband. You need the personal factor here. You can't have a shliach. Amalei Rav Ilish l'Rava, says the Gemara, 6 lines off the bottom. Amalei Rav Ilish l'Rava, ha'imel la'avdu. Okay, now we have an Eved, right? So he has a slave, and he says to him, do me a favor. Say v'hishoyl in parosi, ma'u. I'm lending my para to my dear friend Shimon, please go help him out. Is that called Ba'alav Imai or not? So although we already discussed this question, a similar question about using a shliach, but an Eved is different. So this question regarding an Eved can be posed whether you hold that a shliach works for Ba'alav Imai and to Ba'alav Amar Shluch Shladam Einay Kemaisei. It can be posed and presented according to the other view as well, even if you hold typically a shliach cannot serve in this role, but an Eved perhaps is different. And the Gemara explains. On the one hand, even if you say a shliach works, perhaps that only pertains to a shliach like a yid who does mitzvahs like you do, and they can represent you. Rashi says, a shliach has to be somebody that follows the same lifestyle as you, has the same status as you. But an Eved who doesn't have that status, the lav bar mitzvah, he doesn't have the same mitzvahs as you. So perhaps he cannot really serve as a shliach in this case. On the other hand, you can say, even if you hold that typically a shliach doesn't work for Ba'alav Imai, that's only if you appoint a random person as a shliach. But a slave, yad Eved, yad Rabbi, his hand is like my hand. Damya, it's treated like one entity. He's totally subservient, he's bottled to the master, and perhaps he can be considered Ba'alav Imai in lieu of the master. Amalei, so he responded, Mistabra, that's the correct approach. Yad Evet Yad Rabbi Damya, he's totally, he's sort of like a mirror image of his master. He can represent him, and it's called Ba'alav Imai. Continues the Gemara on the topic of Nichsei Meluk and regarding the husband's, rights concerning his wife's assets. Boy Rami Barcham, Baal b'Nichsei Ishtoi. So, let's say the wife has an animal of Nichsei Meluk, and he's using it. What status does he have? Shoyel Havi or Seicher Havi? Is he considered like a Shoyel and he's chayiv for oines? Or is he merely a Seicher, like a renter, and he has a lower level of responsibility? Why would he be a Seicher? So Rashi later says, because the fact is, it obligates him. the right to use her items obligates him to redeem her if in fact she gets, she's taken captive. So there's sort of like a potential payment here. There's a commitment that he's committing to in exchange for this use. So perhaps he's a seicher. Okay, so that was the question. Amar Rava was taken aback by this question. Levum churfa shabashta, because you're so sharp, Rami Bar Chama, so you sort of got confused and you presented this confusing question. Meaning, what do you mean to ask? Manavshach. What difference does it make whether he's considered a shoyel or a seicher? At the end of the day, she's around, right? And she is with him as he's using her item. It's ba'alav imoy. In any case, he's exempt, right? So the whole question is irrelevant. Manavshach is shoyel havi. If you consider him a shoyel, he's exempt. Shoyel b'ba'alam hi. A seicher havi. If he's a seicher, same story. Schirus b'ba'alam hi. He's renting with the owner. So what's the point of discussing this? Allah, says the Gemara, no. It wasn't such a simple question as we thought. We thought it was pertaining to the husband's rights and his wife's assets, right? No. His question was like this. It was a much more complicated story. Da'agar mina para. V'hadar naspa. What happened was that this fellow Ruvain had rented a para from Rachel before they married, and now he married her. So the question is, what status does he have regarding her assets once they're married? Because when he rented initially, there was no ball of imai, right? He was a regular renter, but now she's around and so-called, serving him, right? Shoyel havi. What's his current status? Is he considered a borrower because now he's accessing the assets because of his status as her husband, as nichsei maluk? So perhaps it elevates him. He's no longer just a renter, he's a shoyel. Right? Shoyel havi. And we'll see in a minute. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Or does he remain a renter? And the Gemara explains, shoyel havi, shall we say he's a shoyel? So basically he went from a renter to a borrower. But this borrowing stage at this point is she'elu v'balam, because the wife is there serving him. So that it overrides his previous status. Mafka, schirus she'elu v'balam, it undoes the rental status, which did not have the aspect of balav imay. Right, so it went from a plain sechirus, was upgraded to a she'ela b'ba'alim, and now he's pater. Or you can say, no, seicher hafi. We treat the husband regarding the nichsei maluk as a renter. So basically there was no change in status. He was a renter, and he still is a renter. It was sechirus k'dekayma kayma, and he's the same old renter. So since when he rented it initially, there was no bal of imoy, so he retains that status and he's responsible. Asks Gemara, why? What do you mean? That should also change, because now we're introducing a new element of balav imay. Once she marries him, what's the difference if you go with the first approach that he turned into a shoyel? We say, okay, it undoes the previous status. The asa she'el v'bailim, the she'el with the bailim comes and undoes mafka schirus she'el v'bailim schirus without the owner that was there until now. Is seicher nami havi? So even if he's a seicher, that should also be sufficient to undo his previous status, which was lacking ba'al of imay, right? Teisi schirus b'balim v'teifuk schirus b'shlei b'balim. The schirus b'balim that's currently happening should undo the schirus without the balim that was there until now. So either way, we have the element of ba'al of imay, whether it's a seicher or a shoyel, ba'al of imay, and he's potter. Okay, so that doesn't work. Ella, rather, we have a third approach, yet a third way to understand the question posed by Rami Bar Chama. It gets even more complicated. For instance, like this: Da'agra para ma'alma. Rachel rented the para from some random rental agency, right? But now Reuben married Rachel, and he gains access to this animal, right? He has a right to use the animal. And the question is like this. if something happens, okay, is he going to pay or not? Now, you may recall back in Perek HaMafka, Daf Lamed Hey, we had a machlokes regarding a similar situation. Shimon borrowed a parah from Reuven, and then he rented it. Shimon rented a parah from Reuven, then he lent it to Levi, and something happens under Levi's watch, which makes him chayav. Right, so the Rabbanan say, well, Levi has to pay Shimon, and Shimon really doesn't have to pay Reuven because he's just a renter. And renter is not chayav for accidents. So basically, Shimon ends up making money off the deal. Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can't do that. How can you make money if the other person's losses? Actually, Levi has to deal directly with the owner, with Reuven, and paying for the lost cow. That was a machlokes we had back in Daf Lamed Hey. The Gemara is comparing our case to that halacha, because here in similar fashion we have a renter lending it to somebody else. She rented the animal. Now she married, so now he's sort of using it as a borrower, as a shoyel. And something happens. So let's analyze this question based on both opinions. Okay, let's go down both tracks now. Now, according to the Rabbanan's view, which is the Amri, they say shoyel mishal maseicher, that the shoyel, in the case of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, it's Levi who borrowed from Shimon. He has to pay Shimon, and Shimon ends up making money, right? So basically, Levi is dealing with Shimon. That's the Rabbanan's view. He's not dealing with the original owner. His issue is with Shimon. You lent me the animal, I got to deal with you. So there's no question as to what's going to happen in our case, where likewise the husband sort of borrowed the rented cow from the wife. Since his deal is directly with the Isha, he doesn't relate to the owner, he relates to the Isha who sort of lent it to him. In fact, she lent it to him because she was with the animal, she was on the scene at the time when the She'elo commenced with her husband. So of course he's patur. The question, however, can still be posed according to the other opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who says that at the end of the day, you have to deal with the original owner. Bypass the middleman. Levi has to go straight to Reuven. He owes to Reuven. He's obliged to Reuven. He has to repay the original owner. So the question now would be, if we have the husband who took it from the wife, who took it from the renter, but now the husband has to deal directly with the renter. So what status does the husband have in this animal? Is he a borrower or a renter, right? Back to the same old question. Shoyel havi or seicher havi? So basically, there's no bal of imay. Because we ignore the fact that the wife is on the scene. She's not a player. He's got to deal with the original owner. So there's no bal of imay. He's chayiv. Question is, to what extent is he chayiv? Is he considered like a shoyel? He's fully chayiv even for einus, or merely limited liabilities like a seicher? A seicher havi. Ha'amarava, not this nor that. Baal, a husband, lo yishayel havi, lo yiseicher havi. What then is he? Elu lekeach havi. He's like a fellow who purchased. He's like a customer. In which case, he's not liable. He's patur. Midur Rabbi Yossi Rechanina. It's based on this halacha. Rabbi Yossi Rechanina b'Usha Iskinu, when the Sanhedrin was posted in the town of Usha, they were masakin. They established this principle that ha'isha shamacher b'nichsim miluk b'chayev bala. What do we find? That a husband has din of lekeach in the following case. Let's say a wife decided to sell her nichsim miluk during her husband's lifetime. Umeis, and then she died. The fellow wants to keep the property. No. Habal moitzim yad l'kuches. The husband can come running and says, no, I'm in there first because the Chachamim gave me a din of a buyer. I'm the first buyer. So that's the conclusion on this shayla. Here comes another question from the same Amoira. Let's say a wife inherited a huge estate. That's your classic nichsei miluk, right? And in that estate we have some hegdish property. Unbeknown to her, we have some hegdish money belonging to the Beis HaMikdash. Now the husband is going to access all this property, all this money, and going to use it. At this point he hadn't used it yet, but it's accessible to him, it's available to him. So who commits me'ilah? The Gemara figures that that's enough to be considered me'ilah. That's a diversion. The fact that it's available to you and you're going to use it, that's considered already having taken it away from Hegdish. It's considered a diversion. It's considered Me'ila. So who's responsible? Mimal. Amarav, Mandamal. Who should be responsible for Me'ila? Limal Baal. You want to blame it on the husband? I'm not interested. If only I would have known what's there, I wouldn't have, right? I wouldn't want it. He wants to take only things which are permissible. He has no interest in taking something which is forbidden. Okay, so he's out of the picture. What about her? Timal Ihi, maybe she's considered one who transgressed Me'ila because she granted it to the husband, right? She allowed him to take it. Well, guess what? She's not even interested in the whole process. It's a takanas chachamim. She didn't initiate, she didn't volunteer to give it to the husband. If it's up to her, even things which are permissible, she wouldn't voluntarily give it to the husband. Rashi says, Chacham made a takana. He didn't ask her for her consent. So basically, it's not her doing. Okay, so nimalu bezdin. So let's blame it, so to speak, on the bezdin. Why? So Rashi says like this. Which bezdin is involved? Which bezdin is liable? Nimalu bezdin. Shal Yisrael Shabbat Yisradar. That generation's bezdin is responsible because they're the one implementing this concept that a husband gets the nechsimilu. Shekol takanois mishpat tluya behen. Val yedein, says Rashi. Nehagois chukois hamusukanam l'tzibur me'oz. They're the ones who are, activating these concepts, these takanos. It's as though they're personally responsible for giving him this money. V'nimtzu, says Rashi, 5 lines off the bottom. Nimtzu, this transfer is attributed to the bezdin. They're the ones that are empowering him, that are authorizing him to access this money. Says the Gemara, okay, so he's out, she's out. What about the bezdin? No, bezdin is not to be blamed. Ki abdu rabbanat akanta. True, the Chacham made a takana. V'amru baal l'ke'echavi. He's a buyer. He has a right. L'teira. They only made the takana for things which are mutter. L'isur le'avd rabban takanta. They never would have made this takana for isur. Of course, they're not giving him access to hegdish money. So who's responsible for the me'ila? Elam Rabbi says, Rabbi, you're right. Nobody's at this early point before the money has been spent or used. There's no me'ila. Baal malk sheyotz. Oh, if the husband actually takes that money and physically spends it, then he did me'ila. Even though it was, a mistake, even though, right, he was unaware. It's like any other hegdish money which somebody spends for non-hegdish purposes. He commits milah by actually spending the money. Okay, let's go back to these basic halacha of a shoyel. You borrow an item, something happens, even an accident, even oines you're chayiv. So the question was like this: Chash bosra machmas malacha mai. Using the animal, right, putting it through some hard work. And, the bus or the flesh, the animal itself got a bit weaker and lost its value somewhat. Does the borrower have to pay for that as well? Is that like a chiv of oines that he has to pay? No, says the Gemara. So this certain chacham, Rav Chilkiah brother of Abishmei, that was his name, he responded, he says, how could you, do you mean to say if the animal dies as it's working? Right? Just, collapses. He's mechayiv, he's chayiv. How could you say that? How could you suggest that he's chayiv? Name it, the fellow could say, look, what do you think I borrowed it for if not to work? Lav l'ukma b'kilta. The purpose wasn't to put it in a cage. Shilta, that's not what I borrowed it for show. I borrowed to work with it. Of course I'm not responsible if it dies just naturally as it's working. Elamah Rabbi says, Rabbi, you're right. Of course, needless to say that any sort of weakening that occurs through the malacha, of course he's not chayiv for that. Even though it dies as it's working as pata, because of this very argument, Amalek can say, I didn't borrow it to put it in the cage. However, there was a story about this fellow, the shoyel nargam chaver, he borrowed an axe from his friend. And it broke. Also, the Rabbi comes to Rabbi Amalek, he says to him, Zulaisi Sadi, just simply bring some edim, the lavshan is spay that you didn't abuse it, you used it properly, v'fatar, v'ibtar, and you'll be pater from payment, because as we said, this is called mesa machas malacha. It was damaged as it was being used properly. What if he can't prove his case? He doesn't have witnesses. What's the halacha? So the question is, of course he has to pay, but does he have to pay the full value of a new axe, or can we deduct the value of the broken parts and he only has to pay the difference? Ta'ashmai comes at right, Abu Gavra, a similar story about the fellow, the Shol Nagam Chavri borrowed an axe, and it broke. This time he was negligent, he's fully responsible. Also, the rabbi comes to Rabbi Amalei Zil Shlimle Nargam Ali, pay him a full, beautiful new axe. No deduction, no discounts. Amri laid Rav Kahana Rav Asi, they turned to the Rav. Is this the correct approach to things? What do you mean? We learned about Bava Metzia. Remember, if you damage something, you don't have to pay the difference. You don't have to give him a brand new item. The Rav, and Rav was silenced, he didn't have an answer. And that's the halacha. Rav Kahana Rav Asi, the Mahadale Tavre. Firstly, he gives him back his broken pieces, and he gives him the balance between the value of the broken parts to what it costs to buy a new one. That's the extent of his responsibility. Just learn one more thing here. There was another story of a fellow, the Shol Dav Mechabrei. He borrowed a pail from his friend. It broke. Also, comes to Rav Papa Amrlei. Rav Papa tells him, "I see sad leishonis. Just bring Edom that you you were not careless, you weren't negligent. V'ibtar and be potter, despite the fact that you're a shoyel, who's chayv and oines. But this is like a mesa machmas malacha, which we said is potter." Okay, so let's just recap today's daf. We tried to figure out the parameters of a shoyel, the parameters of balav imoy, what's considered an owner. We learned about the halacha of a baal b'nechse ishtei lekeyach, and the concept of mesa machmas malacha, and even a shoyel is potter. All the best to you, and atzlach.